These machines could fell a 200-foot Douglas fir in under a minute, carry loads that would crush a modern pickup truck like a tin can, and operate in terrain so steep that one wrong move meant the whole machine tumbled down a mountainside. They were engineering titans, built for punishment, bred for the forest. But today, almost nobody remembers their names. Here are 10 logging beasts from the 1980s that the industry quietly forgot. Number 1. Koehring Buncher 6600. If you spent any time in the Pacific Northwest timber industry during the early 1980s, you might remember the Koehring 6600 Buncher, a tracked machine that was, by all measures, a mechanical predator. Koehring Company, based out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, had been building heavy construction equipment since 1926, but their forestry line in the late 1970s and early 1980s represented some of their most ambitious engineering. The 6600 used a disc saw head capable of slicing through trees up to 24 inches in diameter in a single pass. It ran on a Cummins diesel engine, producing around 185 horsepower, serious output for a purpose-built forestry machine of that era. What made the Koehring 6600 particularly notable was its accumulating head, which allowed the machine to grab and hold multiple stems before laying them down as a bunch, dramatically reducing the time a skidder would need to make passes through a cut block. Koehring's forestry division eventually struggled as the company went through financial restructuring in the late 1980s. Koehring was acquired by C.G. Phil in 1983, and the brand's forestry machines slowly disappeared from dealer lots. Today, finding a working 6600 is genuinely rare. Most were worked so hard they simply wore out in the field, and parts became increasingly difficult to source. Number 2. Clark, Michigan 675 B-Log Skidder. Clark Equipment Company is perhaps best remembered today for its forklifts, but in the 1980s, Clark, Michigan was a legitimate force in the logging world. The 675B grapple skidder was a workhorse that operated in the hardwood forests of the American Southeast and the softwood stands of the Canadian Shield, powered by a Cummins or Caterpillar diesel, depending on specification. The 675B produced around 210 horsepower and could handle a grapple payload of roughly 22,000 pounds, meaning it could drag enormous bunches of timber from a cut area back to the landing in a single pass. It ran on 4 large flotation tires and featured articulated steering, which gave it surprisingly good maneuverability for a machine of that weight class. Clark, Michigan's heavy equipment division was eventually sold to Volvo in 1985, and the equipment lineage was absorbed and rebranded. The 675B and its siblings quietly faded as the Volvo BM brand, and later just Volvo took over the product line. Old-timers in timber regions of Georgia, Alabama, and Ontario still occasionally reference these machines, but Clark, Michigan as a logging brand is largely forgotten. Number 3. Franklin 170 High Lead Yarder. Yarding, the process of dragging or flying logs from the hillside to a central landing using cables, was still a dominant harvesting method in steep coastal terrain during the 1980s. Franklin Manufacturing, based in Eugene, Oregon, built some of the most respected cable yarding equipment of the era. Their 170 series swing yarder became a staple on steep ground logging operations throughout Oregon, Washington, and British Columbia. The Franklin 170 was a self-propelled swing yarder, meaning it could reposition itself on the landing without a separate machine doing the moving. It used a Caterpillar diesel power plant and could handle mainline tensions of over 80,000 pounds, enough to pull massive old-growth logs up steep slopes and swing them across rugged terrain to the landing. Franklin's equipment was expensive but exceptionally durable. However, as old-growth logging declined through the late 1980s and early 1990s due to environmental regulations and changing forest management practices, demand for high-capacity swing yarders collapsed. Franklin Manufacturing eventually wound down its production. The 170s that still exist are collector pieces among logging historians, and a handful remain in intermittent operational use in steep slope operations in the Pacific Northwest. Number 4. Timberjack 380 Skidder. Before John Deere fully absorbed Timberjack in 2000, the company was one of the most respected independent names in forest machinery. The Timberjack 380 skidder, produced through much of the 1980s, was a cable skidder, meaning it used a winch and choker cables rather than a grapple to assemble and drag logs. The 380 was powered by a Ford diesel engine and produced approximately 100 horsepower, putting it in the light to mid-range of skidder capacity. It was designed for smaller timber operations, family woodlots, and selective cutting work, where a big grapple machine would be overkill. The 380's relatively modest size and good visibility from the cab made it popular with operators who needed precision as well as pulling power. Timberjack steadily moved up market through the 1980s and 1990s, releasing larger and more capable machines. The smaller cable skidders like the 380 were phased out as the industry consolidated around larger grapple machines. Today, the 380 is a footnote, even among Timberjack enthusiasts, overshadowed by the company's later and better remembered models. Number 5. Washington Iron Works 99S Yarder. Washington Iron Works of Seattle was one of the oldest and most storied manufacturers of logging equipment in North American history, dating back to 1882. By the 1980s, the company was producing some of the most powerful cable yarding systems ever built. Their 99S steam-to-diesel conversion yarder, originally engineered as a steam donkey and later adapted to diesel power, represented the tail end of a century-long logging tradition. Some 99S units operating in the 1980s had been in continuous service for decades, rebuilt and repowered multiple times. They were enormous machines, typically mounted on spars or on skids at a landing, capable of handling main lines of 1¼ inch diameter steel cable and pulling loads measured in tens of thousands of pounds. In the old-growth Douglas fir and Sitka spruce operations of the Oregon and Washington coast, they were still king. Washington Iron Works faced mounting pressure as the old-growth timber supply contracted, and the company eventually ceased production of new yarders. The company itself closed in 1997. The 99S units that survived into the modern era are genuine industrial artifacts. A few are preserved at logging museums, including the Camp 18 Logging Museum near Elsie, Oregon. Number 6. Caterpillar D8 L Bulldozer. Logging configuration. The Caterpillar D8 is not an obscure machine. It's one of the most famous crawler tractors ever made. But the specific D8L variant, produced from 1982 to 1996, deserves separate recognition in the context of 1980s logging because of its particular dominance in road building and log deck management during that era. The D8L used a Cat 3408 V8 diesel engine producing 285 net horsepower, making it significantly more powerful than its predecessor, the D8K. For logging operations, the D8L was typically fitted with a semi-U blade for pushing slash and building roads, and often carried a rear ripper for breaking up hard pan and rock on new road construction. In coastal British Columbia, southeast Alaska, and the mountainous terrain of Idaho and Montana, D8Ls built thousands of miles of logging roads through the decade. What makes the D8L a forgotten beast isn't obscurity during its time. It was everywhere. But the fact that the specific L variant is now often overlooked in favor of later models. Used D8Ls still exist in decent numbers, but they are aging out of service, and the logging configuration's specific blade types, logging arches, and winch setups are becoming increasingly rare. Number 7. Drott 40 Crawler Loader. Logging deck work. J.I. Case acquired Drott manufacturing in 1967. But through much of the 1980s, equipment badged under the Drott name, or early Case Drott machines, was still commonplace at log landings across North America. The Drott 40 was a crawler loader frequently adapted for logging deck work, using a log grapple attachment to sort, stack, and load timber. The Drott 40 ran on a Case diesel engine producing around 100 horsepower and sat in the mid-size loader class. Its tracked undercarriage made it suited to soft, muddy landing conditions that would bog down a wheeled machine. With a log grapple, an experienced operator could sort logs by species and size at a landing with surprising precision and speed. Case Drott equipment was eventually phased out as Case consolidated its product lines, and the Drott brand name was retired entirely. The specific logging configurations of the Drott 40, grapple heads, log arches, and custom mounting systems fabricated by smaller regional shops are now extremely rare. Most surviving units long ago had their logging attachments stripped and were repurposed or scrapped. Number 8. Rottne Industrie Rottne Rapid Harvester. While North American loggers were still dominating with full tree systems and grapple skidders, A quieter revolution was happening across the Atlantic. Swedish manufacturer Rottne Industry introduced the Rottne Rapid Harvester, one of the early European machines pushing the single-grip cut-to-length harvesting system into serious commercial use during the 19th. The Rottne Rapid wasn't massive by North American standards. It didn't look like a brute, but what it lacked in sheer bulk, it made up for in precision engineering. Powered by a mid-range diesel engine producing roughly 140 to 160 horsepower depending on configuration, the Rapid used a single-grip harvester head capable of felling, delimbing, and bucking logs into precise lengths right at the stump. Unlike traditional full tree logging, where trees were dragged whole to a landing, the Rottne system processed timber where it stood. That meant less soil disturbance, less slash buildup, and cleaner operations. In Scandinavia, this method quickly became dominant. In North America, however, contractors were skeptical. The terrain was bigger, the timber was larger, and many operators simply trusted cable systems and skidders more than computerized measuring heads. The Rapid represented an early attempt to modernize harvesting efficiency, but it arrived before most North American logging outfits were ready to change. Parts supply outside Europe was limited. Mechanics weren't familiar with the hydraulic systems, and early electronic measuring systems were prone to calibration issues. By the early 1990s, larger and more advanced harvesters from companies like Timberjack and Valmet overshadowed the Rapid. Rottne survived as a company and still builds forestry machines today, but the Rapid model itself faded into obscurity. Today, finding working footage of an original 1980s Rottne Rapid in North America is rare, but not impossible. A handful still operate in Scandinavian thinning operations, and a few aging units show up in private forestry collections. It wasn't the biggest machine of the decade. It wasn't the loudest, but it was one of the early machines that quietly predicted the future of logging. And almost nobody on this side of the Atlantic remembers its name. Number 9. Pettibone Carry Lift Log Stacker. Pettibone Corporation of Chicago was producing rough terrain forklifts and log stackers well before the 1980s, but their Carry Lift series log stackers became a common sight at sawmill yards, log sorting facilities, and export log terminals through the decade. The Carry Lift used a telescoping boom with a log grapple to stack and move logs in the yard, operating as a four-wheel drive, four-wheel steer machine that could position itself with precision in tight spaces. The log handling versions of the Carry Lift could reach stack heights of 30 feet or more and handle log loads of several tons per lift. At coastal export terminals in Oregon, Washington, and British Columbia, where logs destined for Japanese and Korean mills were sorted and loaded onto ships, Pettibone carry lifts were essential equipment through most of the 1980s. Pettibone went through a series of ownership changes and restructurings in the late 1980s and 1990s. The brand still exists today, but the specific log handling configurations of the Carry Lift series have been superseded by more modern telehandler designs, and the original 1980s machines have largely disappeared from active service. Sawmill veterans from the era still remember them distinctly, but they rarely come up in modern industry discussions. Number 10. Madill 124 Grapple Yarder. Madill Equipment, based in Nanaimo, British Columbia, is one of the few companies on this list that still exists. But the 124 Grapple Yarder from the early 1980s represents a specific moment in logging technology that has been largely forgotten, even by those who know the Madill name. The Madill 12-4 was a self-propelled grapple yarder, a machine that combined a cable yarding system with a remote-controlled grapple that could reach into the cut block, grab logs without needing a choker setter in the woods, and bring them to the landing. In steep, dangerous terrain, this was a safety revolution. Choker setting, attaching cables to logs by hand on steep slopes, was one of the most dangerous jobs in the forest industry, and grapple yarders like the 124 reduced the need for workers in hazardous positions. The 124 was powered by a Caterpillar diesel and could operate on slopes up to 70% grade, genuinely terrifying terrain for any machine. It used a radio-controlled grapple with a reach of several hundred feet into the cut block, and an experienced operator could build a significant brush pile of logs at the landing without any worker setting foot on the slope. Despite its genuine ingenuity, the 124 was a complex machine that required skilled operators and careful maintenance. As Madill developed more capable subsequent models through the late 1980s and into the 1990s, the 124 was retired. Many were scrapped or left to decay at the edge of landings in remote British Columbia. A handful survive in private collections, and Madill's own company history acknowledges the 124 as a pivotal early development in grapple yarding technology. So that's it for today. If you like this video, then please hit the like and subscribe button for more videos. Thanks for watching.